Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by my buddy Myron.
Hey, folks. How y'all doing today? Hopefully, we've got a good show for you. I might be a little rusty. I've tried not to take back medicine, so I'll try to stay in the moment. So we'll see what we got for you. So tell me, Nick, what have we learned this week?
Man, lots of things we learned this week. By the way, I have not shared with you. I'm going to do a tease on the air here. I had a conversation with a promoter about running a. Let me rephrase that. About booking a show in a particular place that I will share with you offline.
Oh boy!
And he actually asked my opinion on a couple matches.
Oh boy!
And I gave him, because of the location, I gave him some specifics that I would like to see in that location. Gave him some names that I'm eager to share that with you. We literally jumped straight into recording, and I have not shared those thoughts with you. And I think a lot of people will be excited if this comes to fruition. It'll be the spring, by the way. It'll be after the holidays, Christmas holidays, and everything. But I think it'll be something that's super cool.
Okay, this isn't gonna give me a heart attack or anything, is it?
I don't think so, but it's pretty cool.
Is it gonna use our money?
No.
Okay, cool. Sounds great. I can't wait to hear all about this.
Yeah, I'll scoop you in on that off air, but I figured that's a tease. Listen, but you know what? When I'm given permission to discuss it, where do you think I will share it, Myron?
Behind the paywall.
That is correct. Behind the paywall, either on YouTube.com or over on our Patreon channel. Either one, I will probably discuss it in length there. But make sure, look, you're subscribing on the YouTube channel. Like it, subscribe to it, turn your notifications on. You could even become a member on our Patreon page. All that good stuff, because that's where you get the show early, and like a lot of the extras with all the articles and everything on YouTube.com and Patreon.com. And by the way, Tapped Out Pod is the handle / at for both, so it's easy to find either way. So
I tell you what, I'm excited about today's show, Nick. There's so much neat stuff on here. And some news and some secrets about Vince McMahon. And I always get excited about secrets about Vince McMahon. So let's start in.
Well, man, look, the merger happened. So now we have TKO Holdings. We kind of talked about that a little bit last week. So if you want to check that out, go back in the archives. We're going to talk about something just a hair different. This week, it comes out, Vince McMahon shared his reasons. Why do the merger?
Okay. And I'm itching to hear this.
So it's kind of cool to hear, and I'll explain why I think it's cool. Vince McMahon said he believed the WWE had plateaued, and it was time. Like it was time to do a sale / merger, whatever. And I really started thinking about, like, most people would have looked at WWE and just kept seeing, record growth. And, like, how could it have plateaued? I agree with that at some point, but I ask a simple question. Why would I put more faith in Vince McMahon's answer than most? And it's because I think in history shows us Vince has always been, like, in my opinion, and it, obviously hindsight's 2020, but Vince has always been someone who sees the future, like, ahead of time.
I think the only thing that will limit Vince's legacy as a multimedia genius and someone who's been able to keep ahead of trends is the fact he did it in wrestling. If Vince McMahon would have done this in any other field of multimedia or Hollywood, he'd have been seen as, was it Bob Iger of Disney or anything like that? Vince would have been seen ahead of him. He's almost seen the future and predicted this and made media decisions that other media forms have tried to copy. He went global in an era where no one was going global. He went to the internet. He's gone over to streaming services. How do you deny him?
That's what I'm saying. Like, when all of the territories were regional, he saw the vision of national.
Yes.
Well, then even national wasn't a thing. It was he went to cable first. That was kind of like the next thing that he saw, like, hey, you got to get on cable and you got to get out there in syndication and you got to do all this. And then it was a global product. By the way, he also foresaw the market of pay-per-view. Like, he was doing the pay-per-views, and then of all things, like, we thought he was bananas when we thought WWE Network. He saw a streaming service. He jumped all over that and spiraled all of that into a greater, it just, the company grew and grew and grew. And what I wonder is, did he see somebody like, and this is why, because everybody always asks me, why Endeavor? Like, why not somebody else, right? And I think it's because of both parties had to look at it and say, what does each one bring to the table? And, from a UFC perspective, I still stand behind the fact of, I think UFC can learn a ton from production, a ton from the merchandising, and stuff like that. That's just my take on it. WWE, on the other hand, can leverage the TV, with all of it being tied together, they have more negotiating power when it comes to media rights, but then also their talent, dude, they have access to, television agencies, movie agencies, that kind of stuff. So there's so much leverage between the grander scale of all of them combined.
I mean, it goes all the way back to Ken Shamrock. Okay. And also maybe it brings a little hair of legitimacy. Maybe it gives them such a bigger crossover that when it comes to negotiating movie companies, when it goes to negotiating with anything, that they have this massive base. Maybe they can spread the base of sports entertainment across the UFC base. It's not a crossover. Isn't that what Gary and all other businesses, Dana White has said? It's a tiny crossover of fans. Maybe they can capture both markets.
I know, like, one of the the executives said that they'd love to make all of the UFC fans WWE fans and vice versa. Dana White comes back and basically says it's the dumbest shit I've ever heard, because, like, he gets it. And I never thought. I think the crossover is easier from a talent perspective. The talent coming from UFC to WWE. Going the other way would be so minute, in my opinion. I think the advantages that UFC gains is, like I said, is from a travel perspective. It's from the merchandising and the all of those, the behind the scenes stuff. I think UFC can learn a lot from WWE, and but that's
WWE's figured out how to get people to Saudi Arabia and run shows, and how to get the logistics of making that happen. They've ran shows all over the world. They've put up shows anywhere that you needed to get a bunch of production equipment, a bunch of people. They know how to do all of that stuff. They can give you advice. We're not talking about just moving a movie, like a movie crew and a few actors someplace. We're talking about moving a giant studio production over to someplace with how much of a production crew, how much of a backstage crew, how many wrestlers, all of that. If you can put on a pay-per-view over on the other side of the globe, that's pretty impressive. And the UFC, I'm sure, will want to tap into that experience.
Because I thought, Conrad Thompson brought up a great point this week, and he was like, can you imagine UFC, if you've never watched it, is pretty plain vanilla. They walk out, they have music playing, but they kind of walk it down, they hop into the cage. He's like, can you imagine WWE, because they've talked about the super weekend, where you have a UFC, WWE events and all that kind of stuff. And what I thought of was, can you imagine, this is my take, Smackdown and UFC Friday, Saturday nights in the same arena, and then like the next night it's like Royal Rumble or something. It's in the baseball stadium or the football, because they're trying to run the stadiums for those bigger events now.
Yeah, it's probably easier to book the whole thing.
So Friday you run Smackdown, and the only thing you change is they tear down the ring and they put up the octagon in the middle. And here's why I think that's cool. Can you imagine the UFC fighters and then the UFC fans seeing their favorite fighters walk down the ramp with the Jumbotron behind them, music playing, video packages going, just the production level of UFC going from here to like, my hand just went off of the top of the screen,
Spectacle. The WWE spectacle Nobody does spectacle better than them.
UFC fans would lose their fucking minds. It would be the coolest thing on the planet.
Now, does this gain legitimacy for WWE?
No.
Or does it lose legitimacy for UFC?
No. Like I said, I don't know. People aren't going to be like, they shouldn't kid themselves. I mean, listen, there's probably some guy, and I'm not going to pick a location, and I'm not going to pick a thing. I'm not going to pick a caricature of somebody and say that believes that just because, UFC's now merged with WWE, that it's real now. I mean, I hope not, but okay. I'll get the email, I'm sure. It's still real to me, right? Yes. But I just think, like I said, from a presentation standpoint, and this is just my take, I think the UFC can benefit more from the presentation than WWE is going to get anything in return from the UFC. I think the WWE's gain is all from the parent company of Endeavor.
Oh, Nick.
Yeah.
What if WWE doesn't go on Peacock again? Oh, is this new company got enough pull to make a big negotiated contract now that you've got UFC and WWE on the same bill?
They could. I know UFC's not completely happy with ESPN Plus to begin with, so I could see them. I could see them on their own streaming network for that matter, creating their own monster.
Because ESPN is Disney, right? ESPN Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, they all work together. That's not the issue. The Endeavor talent agencies are going to work. That's not what I'm saying. I just don't like. I don't think they like the way the structure, the setup is.
So you could negotiate bigger contracts with whoever you're dealing with because you've got this bigger power now. You're
if you're doing both, and I know there's been talks of them maybe doing a short-term deal with one or the other to try to get those rights synced up so they're coming up together.
Yeah.
And so if they pull that off, I think that's where the leverage is. If they stay off cycle, and then you're it doesn't really matter. Unless you're trying to package and say, hey, go ahead and sign this one, and they'll come on, and then when the other ones comes on, you'd renew it and you'd be up again. So
I mean, because if I had UFC on my WWE streaming service, I'd be more likely to watch UFC than I would now if I had to go somewhere else and pay for it.
The biggest obstacle is I can't foresee a $9.99 or even a $14.99 streaming service with both of them on it. It's at least going to be $20. And here's the problem. I like UFC, but I'm not paying $20 for a service for WWE when I don't. I think there's a lot of fans who watch WWE that don't care about UFC. We talked about the lack of, I think, the crossovers there. Yeah. I think you might alienate people that drop the streaming service altogether because it's just too, they don't want to pay $19.99 for WWE. But that's just my take. I could be wrong, but that's just my take.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out. This is one of those things. There's so many other rumors in professional wrestling right now, so I can't wait to get into some of the other ones as far as AEW is concerned in this matter. So,
we're gonna get there because that's on the notes too. Yeah. But before we do, we want to talk about obviously. Look, Friday was the biggest. There was lots of stuff over the weekend that was hot. Biggest thing that we talked about, or that was Rock made an appearance. The Pat McAfee appearance was important to what we're going to talk about. Then he appeared on Smackdown. Had a big segment with Theory. Pat McAfee was on there and was so it was kind of a cool thing. It was cool seeing John Cena and Rock coming face to face backstage. That was a cool thing. By the way, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. Go back and everybody mocks Theory because Vince said he was the chosen one. Theory's been in the ring at this point with Vince, Pat, which I guess not a big deal, so I'll leave him off.
He took a people's elbow from Pat.
But he took a people's elbow from The Rock. He's taken a stunner from Stone Cold. He's wrestled John Cena. Like, dude's been in the ring with some big names for people to be crapping on him.
Could they put the seal on his forehead any more effectively?
Yes, and I'll get to how I think they could. Not with Theory, but it's going to be with somebody else. But I want to ask you because on Pat McAfee's show, Rock makes the comment that the WrestleMania 39 thing with Roman was basically locked in. Just there wasn't anything that the story wasn't inspiring enough for him, so they didn't go with it. They ended up so we got Cody instead. I'm going to break this into two parts. The first one I want to ask you was Dave LaGreca's reaction on Busted Open.
I think, go ahead, give me some more of this reaction before I give my opinion.
Yeah, he basically came out and said that he felt that Rock shit all over the Cody match because it essentially painted the picture of you were supposed to get me versus Roman. I wasn't inspired enough by it, so you got Cody instead. So Cody was the second choice. And here's the thing I tried to tell somebody. I'm not saying he's right, but I'm also not saying he's wrong because I can see somebody interpreting it that way. That somebody could go, why couldn't he just say, hey, we tried to work it out. It just didn't, it just kind of didn't happen. But to sit there and say they had it, it was a done deal. And in the end, I wasn't motivated enough. It wasn't, something I wanted to do. You just get to pick and choose and and then the Cody's moment and then everything they've built since Cody. Because here's the thing. Then he teases, who knows, maybe at 40. Okay, so now all of the building for, in this part, I kind of agree with this. So basically, Rock's telling us that if he decides he wants to do 40, they fucking wasted all this time with Cody building him up to face Roman at 40 because now The Rock decides he wants to do it, and so Cody's out.
Okay. Now, I've studied on this. We talked about this earlier in the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I said something. It turned out I was mistaken because I didn't study on it. But I studied on it, and I've come to a very unique take, and you probably disagree with it. But I fully believe that The Rock and Pat McAfee got on television, and they worked the entire audience. And LaGreca, if he wasn't in on it, he bit like a mark. And they put this thing over. And if this doesn't turn into a storyline, Nick, I will be sadly disappointed. Okay? If they don't show on TV how The Rock disrespected Cody, if The Rock wouldn't have wanted that match, The Rock just wasn't interested. If The Rock's part of the Samoan family, the dynasty that Cody Rhodes just doesn't rate a match with, to me, this sounds like a work. And just the fact that it was on national TV, people are reading it more as a shoot than it would had he done it on WWE TV. That's my take. I might be 100% wrong.
But if it's not, if it turns out that it's not, then in hindsight, did he? Maybe altogether. But
no,
you just positioned, your logic is it's okay because you think it's a work down the road to lead to something. My point is, if it leads to nothing and it's not a work and it is legitimately something he just fucking said on TV, did he shit on the whole does that go back? Did that change your opinion? Because that would literally change the reasoning why you're okay with it.
See, I'm still in that position where if The Rock shits on something, the wrestling world is there with spoons eating it. Because if we look at The Rock and Cena, they're going to go down as the elder statesmen of sport. They're going to go down as more important than Flair and Hogan. Okay? They're going to go down as the most influential.
I totally disagree.
They're going to go down as the most influential people in professional wrestling because they brought it into this golden age we're in now. Hogan and Flair will never have made as much money as The Rock and Cena played.
Money's irrelevant because the game's totally changed. That's like saying Joe Burrow is a better quarterback than Joe Montana because he's going to make 10 times the money he made.
You can't compare wrestling and football.
What? No, it wasn't wrestling. You said because they've made more money.
They drew more money, and in wrestling, a lot of times, who draws the most money is a symbol of who's most important.
Joe Montana played in smaller stadiums, even though they were sold out all the time. Joe Burrow put more butts in seats in the Bengals stadium, so he's a better quarterback.
No, that's not what I said. I said The Rock and Cena are better for the company. They're going to go down as more important to professional wrestling and more important to sports entertainment, okay, which Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair did not do. They're going to go down as more important to all of the entire, especially this younger generation and maybe our generation, than The Rock and Sorry, Hogan and Flair.
I will go to the look. I don't even particularly love Hulk Hogan, but I tell people all the time he is the most influential person in pro wrestling, because with no Hulk Hogan, I'm not sure there's WrestleMania. There's not 2. There's definitely not 3, and they're not off to the races. Ric Flair's in my opinion, the best professional wrestler of all time, but nobody was more important to the growth of pro wrestling than Hulk Hogan. And nobody will ever pass that. Rock, Cena. Rock, I could tell you, and this is my opinion, and I could be totally wrong, and I love me some Rock in wrestling. Everybody knows that. I think that if Rock's not even there, they still have the potential, because you had Austin and you had the other players. I could argue that it's not as, a gaping hole as if Hogan's not there. I don't even know that we're here.
That's not unreasonable. I say you have a point, but
anyway,
really,
let's go back to the real.
But you can't put Hogan and Flair on television without Flair making an ass of himself, and then Hogan making up lies about what he's done.
But no. But I'm talking about then, not the now, because you're saying they.
But even then, you couldn't put Hogan and Flair on ESPN. You even at their prime, you couldn't have put, and they wouldn't have put either one of them on ESPN. You never would have seen either one of those guys on if Game Day had existed.
My pushback is, without Hulk Hogan, there ain't nobody on ESPN. Because Hulk Hogan's, does Rocky 3, and then that kind of exponentially grows. Who gave a shit? That's the problem. The media didn't care about wrestling at that point. It took them to get it there, in my opinion. Totally different time. I think that's the apples to apples. But LaGreca's reaction of saying, I just kind of and listen, by the way, history shows us that Rock has a hard time getting along with people in general. And I know that's not a popular thing to say when you look at his movies and people talk and a little that or whatever. That's neither here nor there. But my thing is, I do wish he would have just kind of, if it came out like, hey, how close, just say, lie. Don't make us think that. Just say, it was pretty close. We almost had it and whatever. So, but now the what now is, Myron. So Rock decides he's inspired. He's ready to work 40 now. What do we do? It's a 2-night. What do you do now? So Cody's been building, you would think at this point, because I think they're doing a phenomenal job. More people are all worried about other things. I'm sitting here watching Cody slowly get involved in the Jey Uso story. Because what did we say, Myron? How the fuck do you get Cody back into the Bloodline story? Well, here we go, brothers. They're doing it.
Oh, it's got really interesting. It's got really interesting, and I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying what was happening on the show with the Cody and the Bloodline and all that, and the Sammy and the Kevin and the not trusting him. Yeah, I've been getting that.
They're backdooring him into the Bloodline, which I really, really like. So the question is, I'm just going to a simple one, and then we're going to move on because we got a lot of stuff to cover. But if it's 2 nights, and I am completely, by the way, admitting I'm stealing a portion of this from something else that I heard. Do you get Rocky and Roman for the belts? And then do you give me John Cena versus Cody Rhodes at Mania? Like do night 1, Cena versus Cody. Night 2, Roman versus Rock for the championships. Rock puts Roman over. And that maybe builds to SummerSlam, because guess what? If you're really passing the torch for Cody, do we need John Cena's stamp like he beats John Cena at WrestleMania? And then maybe at SummerSlam we get Roman versus? So now I'm almost talking another year for Cody to win that title.
You're going to have to draw this out for me.
No, we work all through that. I think we're going to get, by the way, I think we're getting combinations of Cody and Jay versus Solo and Jimmy or something like that, or it's going to be Judgment Day in the way first, then you get to Jay and Cody versus Solo and Jimmy eventually. But my question is, at Mania, night 1, John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. Cody needs to prove to himself he's the top guy, and John Cena's one of the stepping stones. Because look, brick by fucking brick, they're going to build Cody Rhodes to be the man. I think you got to build Cody to be the man when he beats Roman. Roman's going to go away. And then on night 2, Roman versus Rock for the championship. He defeats Rock. That cements him as the head of the table. So when Cody takes him, he takes him down. That's option 1. Option 2, triple threat. Rock, Roman, Cody. Cody pins The Rock. So then Roman has the bitch that he didn't beat him for the championship. And then you get the rematch down the road. Or option 3, this is a lot of people's favorites. Night 1, Rock versus Roman. Night 2, Roman versus Cody for the championships. Like, well, Roman has to wrestle twice. By the way, a caveat was night 1, make them both wrestle twice. Make Rock versus Roman and Cena versus Cody on night 1, and then night 2 it's Cody versus Roman for the championships. So Roman doesn't have a bitch that he had to wrestle 2 nights in a row, and Cody only had to wrestle 1.
Okay, draw this out on paper and send it to me. I'm going to pick a Dwayne Johnson movie for me and the wife to watch, so we can play Pin the Rock later. Okay, because she likes him a lot.
Well, yeah, who doesn't? I get it. So let us know, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Which format do you want to see? That's kind of where we're at. Because, look, now we're going to get into some, it sounds horrible. I did some digging yesterday. Raw, because this is my ratings, dude. And we said it for a while that numbers don't lie, but, you can make the numbers lie, I guess, maybe. You can make them say what you want them to say. So 2 weeks consecutively now, Raw has been thrashed by the NFL, and I mean thrashed. It was 1.353 last week, 1.331 this week. That's the million, by the way. Listen, you expect them to, look, NFL's back. You expect a little bit of a ding or whatever. By the way, however, I'm going to play the AEW drum just like they did. It was still the number 7, 8, and 9 show on cable for that. Now, somebody was like, oh, fuck, but AEW is still number 1, 2, or they're still 2, 3, or whatever. Slow your roll, folks. By the way, if you didn't know, 1 through 6 were all occupied by NFL stuff. It was the games on 2 networks. It was the pre-show, the post-game show, and the Sports Center rollover. Like, that was all like a long line. It was all of the games. Because week 1 was the first week. Week 2's the doubleheader. Oh, by the way, if you want to talk about, look, WWE, and I'm the first to say this. If you're going to pick on these numbers, get ready for a long season. Because I read yesterday, the NFL's just going to bend them over hard. Because of the writer's strike, they're going to run games on ABC, a free, over-the-air channel, not even on cable. So it's ESPN and ABC are going to combine, by the way, this week, the 2 NFL games, 22.5 million people watch the games across the 2 networks. That is the key demo, folks, by the way. So run up against something like that on every night of the week.
I can't even make excuses for that. My ex-wife can't even make excuses for that. It is what it is, Nick. It just is what it is. You can't go up against that. You can't. It's no way to. As long as you're still doing over 1 million in this situation, I think you're okay. If the writer strike continues, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this on almost every one of ABC's networks before it's all over.
Well, I mean, look, we already talked about. We saw what they've, college football coming in did the collision. I mean, it's rough. It's a rough sign, but just get used to it. Because, by the way, this week's games, they were double headers. Relatively speaking, they were shitty games. They were close, but they weren't really great games. So that's just the power of the NFL. I mean, that just is what it is.
Is there any chance Mike Bobo will be affected by the writer's strike?
No.
Oh, shit.
No. So, but I tell you what, man, I do want to get into. We're going to move on because I thought I'd throw that in there because I know a lot of people are like, let's stick it to the WWE. Their ratings are in the shitter. Like, dude, good luck with anybody competing. Because, look, I've always said, hey, Myron, can I get the +7s from the DVR readings? That's what I want to see. Because, listen, I've said it time and time again. Me and you, I did not watch Raw at all live.
No,
I was watching. I was watching the two shitty football games.
I watched SmackDown and Raw both yesterday. Okay, on muscle relaxers. So what I'm remembering in pieces today on muscle relaxer hangover. So if I'm slurring my words or confused, that's why. Yeah. So, folks, it is what it is. You have to make it in when you can get it.
But no, my point being, I've got to watch an NFL game live because watching a football game on delay just makes no sense.
No, you can't.
Look, I love our buddy. Football. We got a buddy of ours who will watch a fucking Georgia game 4 hours later on DVR. And I'm like, dude, once I know the score, I don't care. If I'm not watching a football game live, I don't care. Like, people are like, go back. Like, I love the concept of like the classics when they repeat a game. Dude, I saw it. Or if I missed it, I saw the score. I'm good. I don't need to see it again. Wrestling, I can watch it an hour later. I can watch it 4 days later. Whatever. I can still go back and watch it and enjoy it.
It's my stories. It's my stories. Okay, I remember my grandmother and her stories, and there was no DVR, there was no VCR. She watched that shit obsessively.
Brother, I was my mother's DVR. She made me watch Guiding Light for her, and when she came home from work, tell me what happened. Like, I was her DVR because I got home in time from school. But anyway, speaking of stories, there's a confusion in stories, literally to the point of people are just like, dude, you're just Dave Meltzer. You're just making shit up, right? That's what everybody says. Jade Cargill is officially gone. Tony Khan, I guess, essentially confirmed it by saying she's always welcome, kind of confirming that she ain't there. She's heading to WWE per sources, rumors. The Source brothers are out. Here's the question. Uncle Dave claims, by the way, she's going straight to the main roster. She's going to be, she's high priority. They're going to make her a star, blah, blah, blah. I'm in this little group that I'm in, this little chat text group I'm in, and it's unanimous over there. Because it's level-headed guys who don't get caught up in it in that kind of sense. And it's just kind of like, look, Jade Cargill looks like $1 million. She is a superstar in the making. Everybody's in agreement with that. But that cake ain't done yet. That cake still needs to be baked a little more, in my opinion.
Well, you know what WWE does that AEW doesn't do. Okay? WWE takes talent and programs them into a system and then builds that talent and nurtures that talent and then works that talent from the Performance Center into NXT and continues to work them in the Performance Center. And then they give them some exposure on NXT. And as they get better with their television production and their television work, they move up to the main roster. And that's when they shine. Listen. But AEW, you get your role at AEW and you go in to bite into it, and it's still got that doughy spot in it because it's not done, because you walked off the indies right into the ring, or she didn't even work on the indies, did she?
No, listen, God bless her, by the way. I'm not knocking this. She got the Goldberg treatment. They put a belt on her, now kind of out of order, but they put a belt on her, rattled off a bunch of wins, never got beat, and then she finally got beat on the way out, basically. That's essentially
she had that belt 500 days?
I think she had 69 title defenses or something like that. She was 69-0 or something. I don't know. But point being, she needs, I think understandably so, she's going to have an adult in the room go, you need to go down to NXT. You need to get, here's the thing. Her look, her personality is so strong that I think she just has to be good enough in the ring. She doesn't even have to be great in the ring.
Yeah.
But
I think she's got that. Enough. I think she's got the great starting point. I don't think a lot of people have the starting point like that. I think a little work with Shawn Michaels and Natalya, and she'll be $1 million. As much as I love Nia Jax, and I'm Nia Jax's biggest fan, let's just say.
No, you're not. I know Nia Jax's biggest fan. You are not it. Yeah, Mr. Mac is 100% the big. I'm not gonna say his first name. Mr. Mac is the 100% her biggest
AC?
fan. No. Yeah, don't try to guess. I don't want to say the name, but
anyway,
he knows who he is and he listens and he knows he's the biggest fan.
But anyway, she worked with Natalya. They wanted to get her ready. She's been in the ring with Natalya for months and months and months trying to get that. What was the thing she had? That edge, that roughness, that injure people off of her before she came back. It's just that experience thing that Cargill's going to need, that she's only going to get in the program.
Well, I just think she needs to be like just comfortable in the system, like the crowds, the production, knowing that like where to look, where to be,
where to stand,
just little bitty things like that. And I think she'll get there.
Don't put your butt in the camera unless you're supposed to have your butt in the camera.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other, but anyway, speaking about knowing where to be, Myron, there's one specific place I know everybody needs to be. September 30th, where they got to be, Myron?
CannaCon.
Hey, Augusta, have you heard the big news? September 30th, CannaCon is coming right there to 90 Millage Road, right there in Augusta. That's right. That's the American Legion, Post 63, right down the road. 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's part of the big chunk of the festivities. Don't forget, however, at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., live concert will be by Radio Cult right there in the building as well. What's going on this year? Great stuff, including for the first time ever in Georgia. Do you remember the crazy movie back when we were kids, Maximum Overdrive? The Green Goblin head that was there, right there on the 18-wheeler, will be for the first time ever. It will be there. Yes, the original prop from the movie will be right there at CannaCon. Also, look, CannaCon is really famous for its cosplay championship, and for the first time ever, they're going to take it to a whole nother level. Not only will second and third place get trophies, first place will be crowned with the CannaCon Cosplay Championship belt. That's right, championship belt for for the big winner. But hey, look, don't worry about it. Look, the kids are also they're not going to be left out. They got a cosplay specifically for the kids, and they will have a champion as well. And for the first time ever, there will be a Fans Choice Award, like a Fans Choice Prize. So you, the fans, will actually determine one of the winners as well. Special guests are Radio Cult, Kelly Graham, Randall Bishop, Specs Thomas, and many, many more. All of that's going down right there at CannaCon, September 30th, 90 Millage Road, Augusta, Georgia. That's right there at the American Legion. You definitely don't want to miss out. CannaCon 2023 is coming to Augusta, Georgia. That's right, man. Head on down September 30th, CannaCon 2023 in Augusta, man. It's going to be a blast. Definitely a whole lot of stuff going on down there.
Head on down to CannaCon and have ourselves a time.
Exactly, man. But listen, speaking of other big stuff, man, let's jump right into some of the we teased the whole stuff a little bit earlier about streaming services and things like that. I know a lot of people were excited this past week, and I'm gonna question as to necessarily why, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Max. By the way, I'm a big fan of Max. It's one of my favorite streaming services. I prefer it over Netflix, to be bluntly with you. I think there's better stuff overall on Max than there is, but that's because there's a lot of DC shit on there. But that's probably
that's the only thing I've really ever used it for, was streaming DC stuff. My family uses it a good bit, but I
like a lot of the HBO like original stuff, Oz and Succession, but not Succession. But
stuff.
You're soft. You were voted the squishiest of all of the group, so that is true.
I take pride in that.
That's right. So the sports thing's coming on. It's a $10 add-on. They're going to add MLB, NBA, NHL games that they have because I'm funny because I'm like the ones they have the rights to. Because at some point I'm thinking the NBA is going to be gone from them. And of course everybody's like, oh man, that means AEW is coming, right? Sooner than later, right? And everybody's talking about they want them to go to that 12 pay-per-view format, things like that. Listen, I'm not saying it won't happen, but my typical question is going to be, I'm going to give you 27 million reasons why they might not be so fast. That 27 million is $27 million. It's a very rough estimate, folks. That's kind of how we do math in wrestling. In 2023, they averaged about 135,000 buys per pay-per-view. So 135,000 times 4, and I did times $50 for a pay-per-view just because it's a good round number, right?
Plus $12 in fee.
I mean, just whatever.
Yes.
That's $27 million for 4 pay-per-views. So if AEW were to give up, and I know they're talking about 12, it's going to make it even worse, by the way. If you give up 12, and let's say you just give up the 4 pay-per-views, is Warner Brothers Discovery going to pay them $27 million in lost revenue for the pay-per-view? By the way, I get it. It's not $27 million. The pay-per-view company gets a cut, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is wrestling math. $27 million for 4 pay-per-views at $135,000 per. Who's subsidizing that if they go to the streaming? Like, how much is Warner, Brothers Discovery willing to give them to make up for that lost revenue? And is it worth it? Especially if you're going to go to 12 and those new costs are going to come in of running those other 8 pay-per-views. So what do they get paid for that? What do you demand? What would you want to do that? That's the $1 million question, the $27 million question.
Well, what do they? Yeah. See, here's the thing. Is WB or Warner Brothers Discovery, whatever the new name of the company is, are they going to be able to charge more for their service for the average person?
Well,
to be able to pay for this.
It's a $10 add-on
okay.
to get the sporting part. So you're going to go to $10.
Part. Okay.
Yeah.
Nick, do you remember when you had to pay $50 for every WWE pay-per-view and you'd have to split it with people to cut back? Or what was it? What was the cost?
The thing back in the day, I'd never paid more than like $40 for a pay-per-view. Because when they got above 40, it was like, all right, it's time to hit the bars that are watching them. that are showing. Just my take. Like I did do roughly 12 years ago. Yeah, 12 years ago, I did pay for a WrestleMania at the house, or roughly. Well, it's 11. It's a little bit over 11 and a half years ago. I paid for WrestleMania. You were there, I think.
I was there probably. I remember back in the old days where you get a pay-per-view and either you would defray the cost by having people come over to watch it with you and pay, or they would bring the pizza.
Right.
The idea of getting to watch a pay-per-view on your own at home alone, I would pay more for it. I would give the $10.
You want a personal story? How much that cost me?
What's that?
That pay-per-view cost me more than $50 by a long shot. You were there, but there was also there was a lady there who I ended up marrying. So that pay-per-view cost me the last 11 years.
Oh, God.
So there you go. Go ahead and finish your story. Sorry, I thought about that.
Unfortunately, wrestling fans aren't as romantic about their wives as we are about wrestling. But don't ever tell them I said that. I think AEW should be able to ask for what they were getting minus a certain amount for being able to get it regularly. You know what I'm saying? I would want to get not what I was. It's like a salary. I would rather get less money and get it regularly than gamble on 4 pay-per-views a year. If I could, instead of taking what I got off 4 pay-per-views, dividing it by 4 and multiplying it times 12, I would probably be happier to what I would get off 4 pay-per-views, divide it by 4 and multiply it times 10. So I would look at what was our numbers here?
We're at 27 million. Even if you double it, you're at 54 million, and that's going for 8x of a for 8 pay-per-views.
Okay.
You think Warner's going to give them 54 million or 55 million dollars to cover those pay-per-views? Because by the way, do some rough math. That's 5.5 million subscribers on that $10 service to justify it.
Well, what else is in the?
You're not. By the way, they're not getting that. There's no way they get 5.5. They don't have that many people watching. Even if everyone who watched AEW across the board, they're not getting 5.5 million subscribers added. So the math don't jihad for me.
Well, I mean, explain to me what you think they could ask for.
I don't know. Listen, I honestly have no clue. you know what my arm twist would be?
What's that?
If you can't give it there, we want it in the new TV rights. You backdoor that $100 million into the TV rights. That's where we want that money, because then it's guaranteed and we ain't got to worry about it. And then we'll give you those, because then all they're going to do is they're just going to we can just give you a pay-per-view on Sunday and it's just part of the TV deal.
That's not unreasonable. That's fair. I don't see why anybody have a problem with that.
Creative accounting will solve the problem. That's my only take. Warner Brothers Discovery is never going to justify getting enough subscribers for Max to cover the cost that they're going to have to sling AEW for their pay-per-views. Could you blend it into the television rights cost? 100%.
I wish you were balancing my checkbook for me.
But that's the $1 million question. So, because you can't keep losing money. That's the other thing. I understand that Tony Khan's got a ton of money, way more money than a lot of people can dream of having. But you can't keep losing money. And man, that brings me to my next topic. We talked about they're drawing in some buildings 2,500, 3,000 people. I know they ran a building a while back that was 2,700 people or something like that, and the building held 15,000+. My question to you, Myron, I mean, listen, by the way, we know we love small buildings for shows. I love small buildings, especially on indie shows. But I think, is it time for them to run smaller buildings? Because for one, would it make them more profitable? The answer is yes. If you can run a 3,000 or even a 4,000 or 5,000 seated building, if you were a promotion, tappedoutpod@gmail.com, share your thoughts, because I'm going to ask Myron here. Would you rather go to a show in a 4,000 or 5,000 seat building that's full, or a 17,000 seat building that's half full? There's more people there, but does it come off like it's the cool place to go if the building's half full?
Okay, is this still some of the virus, the COVID fallout? I don't mean to get us demonetized by saying
no.
So that fallout is over. Okay, we're going to stay.
Yeah, I don't buy that in the least at this point, because we've seen WWE filling buildings all over the place.
Okay, so it's a product issue. It's not making people come out to see it live.
I remember, by the way, let's remember back a couple of years ago, us having the conversations of, is it the shiny new toy? Everybody's excited to see it, but about the 5th or 6th time you play with a toy, it's kind of like.
Well, the first time we saw AEW come to Atlanta, we had MJF.
We got some tickets.
Wardlow in a steel cage match with Cody, and it was pretty awesome. Yeah, it was really, really awesome. And then they've kept coming back to Atlanta and going to smaller buildings, and it's not been as interesting, and we really haven't felt like going. Or even, I mean, we can get free tickets, but we've not inquired about free tickets because it just didn't seem as awesome. Maybe the live shows don't seem as cool. Maybe the people that like AEW can't get
I got a question for you.
To take them. Maybe that's.
I have one for you.
Okay.
I'm gonna pose this question: can wrestling fans handle more than one super cool promotion since the demise of WCW? Here's what I'm asking. WWE sucks. They were stale, blah, blah, blah. AEW came on the scene. It went like this. Somewhere along the line, the switch flipped. WWE started getting hot, and it's almost like they passed each other going the opposite direction. Can wrestling fans, do you have to have one that you're cheering for? There's a base. We've always said this. There's a base that's going to cheer for both and whatever. But I think just seems like there's a meter where when one gets hot, the other one's not so much, and kind of thing. I don't think so, but that's a pondering question that I had.
Does one drive the other one till the other one falls? I mean, is that what this is? Does WWE drove some people to seek an alternative till they found the alternative and they weren't that interested anymore? Is that what it's come to? I like being in a bigger building where I can spread out, but when you're talking about a 17,000 seat building that has 4,000 people in it, that's fucking ridiculous. Okay.
I just think it doesn't come off again, I just think it's cooler from perception, and perception's reality. That's what we always talk about, right?
Yeah.
I'm just coming from an aspect of, is it just cooler to be in a field 5,000 seat arena than it is. Because even if 5,000 people showed up, but you're in a 15,000 seat arena, it just doesn't feel as cool, especially when because WWE now is bright lighting everything in the, on Raw, because you can see everybody everywhere full. And then you go to, I watched, it was Collision, Rampage, whatever, one of the two. And I think it was Rampage. It was really bad. Like you could only see like the first, it literally looked like old school regional wrestling.
Now, what impresses you more? When you go to a show and you see pallets of chairs stacked up and the fans they fill up the chairs that are on the floor and they have to go to the pallets and pull their own chairs to fill up the rest of them. Or you go to a show and the fans don't fill up the chairs. So the promoter puts out 450 chairs and they draw 250 fans. It looks like it's empty. Okay? It looks like it's less than half, almost, well, not less than half, but almost half empty. I like to see it when the promoter just puts out enough chairs, and then the fans, if the fans have to pull, the late arriving fans have to pull some of their own chairs, it makes it full.
I agree with you there. So.
Yeah.
But maybe, share your
Smaller
thoughts
buildings.
again. tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Let us know what your thoughts are. But now, man, let's hit the accelerator and get into, one of our favorite segments of the week. It's time, before we get into some indie talk, we talk about the Pro Wrestling Tees shirt of the week. Man, I went into the Wayback Machine. No, I'm just kidding. I went into look, friend of the show. We know I love comic books. I was digging through Pro Wrestling Tees and was like, I can't believe we haven't used this guy's shirt yet. None other than our buddy, friend of the show, Ray Fury. Somebody's like, hey, Nick, why this shirt? Well, because look, man, it's a straight off copy, parody, whatever you want to call it, influenced by a Wolverine comic cover, Wolverine #1. Ray Fury, look, what do you always say about Ray Fury, man?
Oh, man, he is one of the best. He's consistent. He markets himself just about better than anybody I know. Love that guy. Absolutely love that guy.
One of the best, if not the best, merch table in the game.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, check him out, man. Pro Wrestling Tees, Ray Fury. Check him out on social media too, man, because he's always selling stuff.
I've never seen his face. Hell, we booked him, and I've never seen his face. That is good work for a mask man.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But look, let's dive in. Speaking of indie stuff, Southern Fried, that was our trip this past weekend. Look, we've openly said it. We're not doing a show this weekend, I don't think. Maybe. I got to talk to you about that Saturday thing. That might actually be a possibility now. I just don't want to commit to it on the air.
This Saturday or next Saturday?
This coming up Saturday at 5 o'clock. Oh, is it next Saturday? Is that brewery show that we were talking about? Is that next week?
That's next Saturday.
Oh, well then, fuck, I ain't doing nothing this weekend then. So, because Thursday we have a big wrestling-ish event to go to, so that'll just come completely, tonight. So, so anyway, Southern Fried last weekend, still hot as ever, man. The storytelling is really, really good. That's why one of the reasons why Todd's the best. He just weaving those stories in and out, man, going from one section to the next. Couple highlights, that we want to make sure we cover here. Main event, Judas wins by a DQ over Hunter James, so he's not the champion, but he does pick up a win. Couple notes I had from that, by the way. Oh, Jesus, it kills me to give this kid credit sometimes.
It's painful.
It is painful. I actually said to the kid, Hunter James, I'm like, he's filling in, dude. He's starting to get, he's up over 200. He's got, the bulk coming in. And I hate to tell folks, that's a dangerous combination when you're putting his talent. Because remember, I always thought he was just a little small. Not small, but just a little bit. I'd like to see him a little bigger.
Well, I mean, it's highlighted versus Judas, because Judas is a monster.
Okay, everybody looks small next to Judas. That's not a fair comparison.
Okay.
I mean, I just meant physically looking like, I was like, but he's filled in tremendously well. The strength was displayed with that brainbuster on Judas. Holy shit. Yeah. I was like, what the hell was that? Because here's the thing, by the way. I'm going to repeat the statement, I think, until we talk it into, what do they say? You speak it into existence. Jediah should be the NWA champion at this point.
I agree. And if I can get your comments, continue to put them in front of people at the NWA that matter, they need to damn listen to this. And if no one else listens to anything we said, that's got to be our top priority, is getting that in front of people. Number 2 priority is putting Hunter James and Tristan Michaels towards the head of the Georgia wrestling scene. They're killing it right now. Killing it. And how do you make somebody somebody like Hunter James more hateable? You put him with an extremely hateable manager.
Yeah.
You make him a super heel. Perfect.
The crazy thing, and this is not on the notes, by the way, I'm about to mess you up. I want to see. Look, they're both bad guys. I think the feud that I really want to see, and I don't want to see a match because that's how everybody. Oh, you've seen the match. I've seen the match. I want to see a long-term story with Hunter James and Nick Caitlin.
Oh.
I want to see those two go at it, and I want to see, because the matches would be tremendous.
Oh.
The vet versus the young kid, and just kind of teaching them a lesson. I think that's
like a Triple H, Shawn Michaels type thing.
Roles were a little bit, yeah, because I see more, because Shawn was teaching Hunter, but the reverse would be the case if I see more anyway. I see a lot of Shawn in both of them. See issues probably. But
before we start the next topic, I have something to say, and I don't normally say things like this, Nick. And I want you to know I agree with you 100%. That's why I'm saying this. And folks, we don't normally draw lines in the sand, but if you don't agree with us on this next statement, you're wrong. And my Facebook page is T.O. space Myron Fancher. You can find me on Facebook. People message me all the time with things. This next statement is 100% correct. Go ahead with the statement, Nick, about women's wrestling in Georgia.
You're talking about the divide?
Yes.
Look, I wasn't even sure how I was going to address this because it is what it is. The top level of women and everybody else. The gap is wide. Look, I've said this in multiple groups and it's like it's
finally come out. We have to share this.
Yeah,
something we've thought about and talked about, and everyone has agreed with us.
So basically, my stance is, if you were to take a ranking, men and women, put the two lists together. I'm not getting into the semantics of who's in what place. What I'm saying is, if you go from number 1 to number 20 in your women's rankings, and number 1 to number 40 in the men's, I think the gap is wider from 1 to 20 in the women's than 1 to 40 in the men's. I can give you, like, there is a very, very top heavy, and I'm debating whether I get into the names of it or not, but the top is the top for a reason in Georgia. And everybody else, like, literally to the point that I'm like, I think the call to promoters are, you're going to have to pay money to bring talent in.
Well, I see a lot of promotions that bring in 2 people. Honestly, Dream Girl Ellie and Lindsay Snow, who are tough to classify as Georgia wrestlers. They wrestle in Georgia a lot.
Lindsay, IWE champion, Ellie, viral champion. So,
okay,
like,
those promotions,
that's it for the most part.
Those promotions are on the far side of the state on the east. I don't think the people live in Georgia, but of the people that live in Georgia, the people we see on a regular basis, you're 100% correct.
Yeah. And
there
top
are some
people,
very good ones, and there are some,
like, tip your cap, dude. I mean, like, being honest,
Danny, Crystal, and Brooklyn, and they're all different, and they all do different
but that's
things,
kind of the debate of.
but they're all quality.
Ellie, I would put on that list if you classify her as Georgia. She's the viral
Yes.
champion. Like the problem with Lindsay Snow is I just think she's not. I don't know if she's an indie wrestler at this point. Like, is she a? You know what I mean? She's had a run elsewhere, so I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm always torn on her. But look, if she classified, sure, she's on the list. So but then there's 5. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, so then what about everybody else? I mean, and I know there's more, and we're leaving some off the list.
Now, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and I don't want to insult people. And if this was a men's wrestling issue, I would have said the same thing. I continually am updated from the fact that I have a progressive girlfriend and I have a daughter, or progressive wife. We're married now. That about women's issues and how to be a little bit more, understanding about certain things. I don't think I'm being sexist here. I really have tried and worked overnight. I saw some of the notes, and I've tried and tried. We've had these conversations with people, and I've tried and tried to work on ways to phrase this where it wouldn't sound sexist, to work on ways where it sound fair, but there's not a good way to do this.
Well, my point being
Where
is
is the problem?
That's why I'm tipping it's I think you've got to bring in the talent, which is why, like I said, I mean, like, and I look, everybody go, oh, we know you love Southern Honor. I do. But Anarchy did it as well, by the way. Anarchy brought in the NWA Women's Champion. Southern Honor is going to bring in Kenzie, Page, the NWA Women's Champion. I think it's got to be that. And here's the thing, I think you got to do it too to have matches with developmental girl. Like, here's my thing. Kat Spencer's getting better because she's working with talent that is really good. You can't have 2 kids that are learning working with each other. They've got to wrestle with more. So you're going to have to bring in but you can't have the same match over and over and over and over. That's not a women's division. Like having the same matches over and over and over, which is why, like I said, there's some talents at the top, and like we've said them, that's your top. You've got a top, and you got to figure out how to fill in that, bottom 10, 15, whatever you want to argue. That's the, look, are there going to there's some talent out there that's going to get there and be that, but you got to keep working with them across the board. I agree. Speaking, look, on a tangent about things I don't understand. I was looking at some posters for upcoming shows and things, and
yeah,
I was like, dude, we watched at Southern Fried, we watched CT Keys. He's wrestling, he's wrestling Xavier Reyes. Then he's involved in the main. He's in the title picture at the next show. Why? Like, dude looks like a beast. Like, why is he not wrestling in more places?
Looks like a wrestler. Acts like a wrestler. Knows how to make people think he's a wrestler. Can wrestle. When he's now he works great on his own, but when you put Jagged Edge with him, it's the best. It's a
great package, yeah.
It's fucking amazing. But he's great on his own. The gimmick with the towel on his head and the chain is terrifying. I can't say enough about how much I enjoy this. And he's intimidating. Okay? He's intimidating. And you can't just get that. And you don't get that a lot in indie wrestling. Let's be honest.
Because of his athleticism, because of the charisma, heated or hated or loved, I think he's a great baby face as much as he is a great heel. I just wish I saw more. So
he could be the Rock. He could be the Rock of Georgia.
What's the old saying? Like, why not more CT Keys? Asking for a friend. I mean, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Like that kind of saying. Like bookers, promoters. Like what's up? What's up with that?
I'd like to see him on more cards. There are places. If I saw CT Keys on the card, I would be more willing to travel.
Dude,
I would be
there's
more
a
willing
show.
to buy tickets.
There's an upcoming show that if you would have told me, I had zero interest, and I saw him on the poster and was like, I was telling Rachel last night, I think I'm gonna have to check this one out. She looked at the poster and she kind of looked back at me and she's like, there's a couple things on there, but she was like, so because she always likes to ask me like, who on the card am I going? Who'd you pay to see? Nick Calen, right?
Yeah.
So I saw that card and I was like, hey, CT Keys on the poster. And it's not at Southern Fried, so guess what? I'm probably going to have to, you talk enough shit about somebody else needs the booking, well, then go see the show where he's getting booked. So, Look, the other match that I just wanted to like stand out, Sal Rinauro had it within a week. Had 2 matches that were some of the best technical wrestling and had a lot of comedy in it as well. That's Sal's wheelhouse, like. And what's crazy is you would have never thought that the, Chip, give me all the fucking belts day is what I'm going to start calling him again. Is that he pulls it off too. Everybody kind of, I think a lot of people, they don't sleep on Chip Day because everybody just knows how fucking good he is. But is Chip Day like underappreciated at times? I think that might be the statement.
I think this whole, this negative, this jerk Chip Day might get over better than lovable Chip Day, don't you think? I mean, he's been such a great lovable Chip Day for a while. I think it's time to see more of dastardly.
The answer to that question is Chip's a good asshole.
Yeah,
just is. I mean, that's okay to say, by the way. He just is. Speaking of which, we got asshole grapplers back.
God, I'm so happy. And I love them. Okay, I love that tag team. And I love Sebo. But it doesn't make no sense to have your damn manager carrying a tennis racket when you're baby faces.
Sure.
Because he's not playing tennis. Okay.
Look, that's not what I had qualms with. I just think they're only, well, I was going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I prefer just bad guys. I think the gimmick works for it. You can swap. Nobody's going to know.
It's a cheating gimmick.
I always think, like, I want the old school. By the way, I like the plate in the, in the mask and the headbutt. Just little things like that. Plus, again, just knowing that team, that's their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I just think they're more natural that way. Not that they can't. Obviously, they pulled it off great, and everybody loved them. But I just think
sold a lot of merch. I got my Grapplers T-shirt.
Yep. But we're glad that's back. I will say the one last note before we get on with Southern Fried. I'm glad we're at least to the meat now. It looks like the Danny only Alexander Lev section, that segment, that program they're going through. I think now, as good old JR would say, business is about to pick up. I was ready for that. I was ready for the progression. Let's get this thing on the roll and see, let's get to them in the ring against each other. That's what I wanted to see. Yeah.
Yes. That's one thing I've been critical of with Lev. He keeps coming out and doing his bit, and then he has to go in and do a hardcore match, or he has to do a cell match, or one of these, he gets put in a battle royal, and it's tough. I want to come in and see him do solo matches. I want to come in and see this. I seen your gimmick. Let me see you work more actual matches. And this is, I think, where we're going to go with it.
I do like the progression, though. Like I said, that's why I'm glad we are heading down that path. And again, he's, what do we always say? He's chasing number 2 to be the most punchable face. It's going to be a hard perch to knock Connor James off of, but he's doing his best for sure. So, look, that's all I've got this week. But before we get out of here, we would be remiss. Got to let you know, check us out on YouTube, youtube.com. Subscribe, turn the notifications on, become a member, blah, 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 all that good shit. Make sure you're doing it. But look, it's not about just YouTube. Also, every podcast platform. I've just stopped saying, we are on every podcast platform at this point. Whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Google Podcasts, Amazon. Like somebody was like, "You're on Amazon?" Yes, we are on Amazon. Yeah, look, we know that's not. Look, we get that YouTube is our big home now, and more people are watching us there now than ever, than listening to the podcast. That just kind of, I guess, people like us. We're just too pretty at this point.
Nick,
everybody wants to see the face.
I got to give you something. I was trying to show off in front of one of Melissa's friends' sons. He's like 15. And he was asking us about the podcast. I'd tell him, and he goes, "Well, where are y'all at?" I'm like, "Everywhere." "Well, are y'all?" I said, "No, we are on every single podcast medium. If there is a place to find a podcast," and he pulled up his phone, he's like, "Oh, you're there. Oh, you're there." I'm like, "Yeah, bitch.
Everywhere."
Yeah.
But look, we greatly appreciate it. Anybody who's ever supporting the show, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on a podcast, we appreciate it. Also want to share love again, like jmartinandcompany.com. They did the pressure washing at the house. They do the gutters. They do the, commercial like restoration. Man, do they even do? You need your pool filled. I know it's the wrong time of the year that, but if you need a lot of water, they also do that kind of stuff, which kind of blew me away. But lots of cool stuff. J. Martin and Company, we appreciate them for being sponsors on the show. My landscape guy came just a couple days ago, matter of fact, and literally knocked on the door and was like, dude, driveway looks great, house looks great. And I said, dude, jmartinandcompany.com, check them out, man. And he was like, definitely have to. When it's gutter time, give them a call. By the way, they're busy. They stay busy, so make sure when you need it, get a hold of them early, because they do a great job. So they're not like hurting for business, but they'll do a great job when they get out and take care of you, man. So
the guy in the picture's a lot more handsome than Jamie is too.
I do agree. The cartoon's cuter.
Who did you get the model for that?
Well, it's not him. It's probably his kid or something like that, right? Who knows? So, but anything else, brother, before we get out of here?
Once again, I have had a lot of fun. I always love doing this. And welcome to the show, folks. Thanks for listening.
All right, man. Well, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.